Welcome to a trilogy of fishing horror stories, where relaxing moments by the lake turn into unforgettable, terrifying experiences. From mysterious underwater figures to haunting encounters, each story will take you into a world of fear and uncertainty. Let's explore the strange and scary things that fishermen experience when peace is just a cover for dark secrets waiting to be discovered. Story 1: Darryl's Pond. About half a mile west of my old house, there is a small, dim pond called Darryl's Pond. This name has existed for a long time, but its origin, as well as why the pond bears that name, remains an unsolved mystery. No one really owns this pond. It has no owner and is often covered in mist, as part of untold stories. On blue moon nights, the weak light of the moon blends with the quiet of the dark night, creating a mysterious and mystical atmosphere, making this a rare destination. One day, as usual, I decided to go to the pond to fish. I prepared an old kayak, and with a pole stuck deep into the ground, I tied a noose to keep the boat from floating away. When the sunlight gradually faded, leaving only the pale yellow light of late afternoon, I began rowing the boat to the middle of the pond, looking for a convenient spot to fish. At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when the sunlight was almost completely extinguished, a shadow of a person appeared from the forest. That person rowed a small boat towards me, with the fading light of the afternoon making everything more vague and mysterious than ever. As the person approached, a heavy and uncomfortable feeling filled the air. Even without any apparent action, this person's presence created an indescribable tension. That person's boat collided with mine with a loud noise, startling me. The distance between us became oppressive, as if there was an invisible weight weighing on the air. The man didn't say a word, just looked at me with cold eyes, showing no emotion. I tried to concentrate on fishing, but his presence made it impossible to concentrate. Every time I glanced towards the man, his eyes followed my every move, as if measuring my every move. When I decided to leave the pond and row the boat towards the shore, the man also rowed, not taking his eyes off me. The tension in my heart reached its peak when I noticed that the man's smile had disappeared, replaced by a cold and threatening expression. A feeling of terror washed over me as I saw the man pull a handgun from inside his jacket. At this point, panic took over me. I jumped off the boat and rushed to shore, running through the forest, my heart pounding in my chest. The night was dark. I didn't dare look back. I only knew that I had to run far away to escape this fear. When I got home, I locked all the doors and windows, pulled down the curtains, leaving only a small gap so I could see outside. Darkness covered everywhere. I turned off all the lights and stood restless, constantly checking to see if anyone was watching from outside. When it was late at night, a light noise from outside startled me. The sound of rustling leaves made me feel like there was a heavy black shadow pressing on my mind. I couldn't move. I could only silently watch through the gap in the window curtain. The feeling of fear was like an invisible shadow, clinging tightly to me. This fear makes me uneasy, as if something is lurking outside, waiting to invade my safe space. After calling 911, I had to wait anxiously, my heart beating rapidly. The police arrived and carefully investigated the house and surrounding area, but did not find any traces. Over the following nights, the worry about being followed did not leave me. The feeling of insecurity follows me in every dream, as if there is an invisible presence always watching my every move. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, I decided to move out. I no longer feel safe in a place where fear still follows every dream, is still present in every small noise of the night. Darryl's pond has since become a haunting memory, a name associated with unforgettable fear, like a scar forever etched in my mind. Story 2, Lexi. One bright summer day, my brother-in-law Jack, some of his friends, and my sister and I planned an overnight fishing trip. Jack, who came from a wealthy family, constantly bragged about the ease and prosperity he had. My sister, since marrying him, also lives a life without worrying about finances. I prepared everything I needed for the trip, packed in a small backpack. We drove to the wealthier part of town, where Jack lived. His house is located next to the bay, almost in his backyard. A wooden dock leads directly to his luxury boat, with the name Lexi. Delicately painted on its side, a small tribute from Jack to my sister, inspired by the character Forrest Gump. From the moment I got on the boat, I felt like I had entered another world. We departed early in the morning. Jack had prepared a rich amount of food, especially delicious hamburger meat, because he had installed a barbecue on the boat. Everything is meticulously prepared, as if their life is a never-ending party. Despite receiving a warm welcome and enjoying the peaceful atmosphere of the sea, the trip was not quite what I expected. Instead of an exciting day of fishing, we only caught one largemouth bass, and that was only because Jack got drunk early on. I tried to convince my sister to let me drink some, but she refused, scolding me because I was only 17 years old at the time. She was always the stiff, the nagging person, and I wondered why I agreed to go with them. As the sun began to set, the sky turned bright orange. I decided to relax on the boat deck, sunbathe, and enjoy the peaceful atmosphere of the sea. Jack put the hamburgers on the grill, but at that moment, I felt like the 3 strange fish we had caught were no longer important. A perfect burger dinner is something I really look forward to. When it gets completely dark, the atmosphere becomes strange and somewhat scary. In the middle of the vast ocean, it felt like I was in space with nothing around, only the emptiness of the night sea. The laughter, shouting, and music from Jack's friends, who were drunk and high on drugs, only added to the surreality of the scene. They invited me to participate in a card game against humanity, and since there was nothing else to do, I agreed. I grabbed a spare beer from the small bar on the boat, took a sip, and looked around. The quiet of the night, along with the light from the stars, made me feel like I was lost in a strange world. My sister no longer nags, but the silence of the sea and strange noises from drunk people make me feel more insecure than ever. Even though I was trying to enjoy the peaceful moment, I couldn't help but worry about the unknown things waiting in this deep night. Once I had finished 3 beers, I finally felt relaxed and enjoyed a mild feeling of intoxication. I had to turn down the volume of the music because it was so loud that I couldn't hear myself speak. Jack and his group of friends were completely out of control, barely conscious. My sister was so drunk that I had never seen her like that, but not as bad as the rest. I tried not to pay too much attention though, because they were all adults trying to enjoy their time on a remote boat in calm waters without harming anyone. However, a terrible surprise happened. When the music was turned down to a lower level, Jack's friend and I heard strange sounds from outside. I immediately turned off the music and immediately realized there were 2 men calling for help from outside. I hurried to the side of the boat, where I saw a smaller boat swaying on the water, on which were 2 Indian men staring at us with worried expressions. I asked them what the problem was, and one of them replied that they were out of food and gas and needed help urgently. When I looked at their faces, I didn't feel very good about this situation. However, the remaining people on the boat, due to being drunk, could not make the right decision in this situation. I feel a burden to make a decision about what to do next. Jack, though somewhat groggy, told the two men to wait there while he got the ladder. While walking, he tripped over something and dropped his beer bottle. I feel like I would hate myself if I didn't help two people in need. So I helped Jack carry the ladder over the edge of the boat and attach it to the railing, so the two men could climb aboard. When they got on the boat and thanked us, Jack, my sister, and their group of friends were all unable to speak coherently to the two men because they were so drunk. I had to apologize and explain that they had had too much to drink. The two men didn't seem to acknowledge my explanation and turned to Jack, asking if we had anything to drink. We led them into the kitchen, where Jack grabbed the leftover burgers from the counter and gave them to them. The two men ate quickly, without a word of thanks. I feel uneasy about this situation. The unrest in my heart is increasing day by day. Jack clumsily handed them a can of gasoline, and the two men thanked us again before climbing down the ladder back to their small boat. When they left, I felt a little more reassured, but couldn't ignore the strange feeling in my heart. After everything was resolved, we all returned to the boat and went to sleep. Jack and my sister went into separate bedrooms, while two of their friends and I had to sleep on pull-out beds and couches. The feeling of being in the cramped and quiet space of the boat made me feel an indescribable anxiety, as if something wrong was waiting in the darkness of the vast ocean. I tossed and turned on the hard rock bench for about an hour, trying to find some sleep amid the rocking waves of the boat. Feeling tired kept me from relaxing, and eventually I had to get up to drink water and go to the bathroom. According to Jack, we should pee in the ocean to save water on the boat. When I opened the door, I expected nothing more than the gentle sound of crashing waves. But instead, I heard the faint sound of a boat engine, accompanied by the sound of splashing water, as if a sailboat was approaching. The darkness surrounding the boat made it impossible for me to determine the source of the sound. Worried, I quickly jumped up to the control panel and turned on the searchlight switch. The bright light of the lamp shines on the water, illuminating the surrounding sea. I started rotating the searchlight from 90 deg, but saw nothing. Continue rotating to 180 deg, still no sign. I decided to continue scanning the remaining third of the 360 deg, and then I saw a dark boat in the distance, approaching closer. Just at that moment, I heard a scream of pain coming from below deck. The scream made me tremble, and I immediately jumped down to the deck and hurried inside. One of Jack's friends was standing quietly in the corner of the room, while the other sat up, awakened by Jack's and my screams. My sister rushed out of the bedroom, panicking and wanting to know what was going on. Jack, with a pale expression, could barely speak clearly, only stammering that he had seen two figures standing right above him. The figures seemed to have run out the front door, out onto the deck. We immediately ran out to see if they were still there, but there was no one in sight. The searchlight still shined at the exact location where I saw the boat, but at this time the boat had completely disappeared. We searched everywhere to see what might have been stolen. We discovered that several gas cans, wallet, and Jack's keys were missing, all of which had previously been placed on the kitchen table. The tension grew, and we had to rush back to Jack's house that night. The return trip took 4 hours, and when we arrived, we discovered there were no signs of forced entry into the house. A spare key hidden in the backyard allowed us to get inside. The next day, Jack, My sister and I changed the locks to ensure safety. The scary thing was, a few weeks earlier, their security camera system had recorded two suspicious men wearing hoods, walking up to the front door and trying to unlock it. Although they were unsuccessful, they quickly ran away afterwards. Based on what we experienced, I'm almost 99% certain that those were the same guys that approached us on the boat. This truth made me feel a deep fear, as if danger was still lurking somewhere in the darkness. Story 3: My Grandpa. The first time I went fishing with my grandfather, who is 84 years old but still full of energy, was an experience I will never forget. We started the trip from our suburban house early in the morning. After more than an hour of driving through deserted and remote roads, we finally reached the area where he had been attached for many years. This is a secret lake, known only to him, where he always finds serenity and joy from his hobby of fishing. My grandfather, with his old but steady hands, prepared everything from fish boxes to fishing rods. Even though I was a newbie, he kept explaining fishing techniques that I had never heard of before. Terms like floating hook lure and sharp hook all made me feel like I was entering a whole new world. As we turned off the main road and followed the narrow dirt road into the forest, I felt the tension and anticipation in my heart. I followed him, pulling the small boat through the thick bushes, and although I tried my best, I felt tired and exhausted. He moved with the ease of a young man, and I felt like I was about to collapse. Finally, after a difficult journey, we placed the boat on the calm lake. Grandpa started teaching me how to put the fishing line and hook into the water. After finishing preparing, he sat down and said nothing more, focusing completely on the water. I feel something strange in this silence. He no longer explained or gave instructions, but just focused intently on something below the water's surface. When I looked back at him, I saw him leaning forward, his expression tense and worried. Curiosity made me unable to control myself. I placed my hand on his shoulder and was shocked to hear the sound of splashing water. Grandpa was pushing something into the water, and in the next moment he shouted in an urgent voice, asking me to row quickly towards the shore. My heart was pounding. A feeling of panic filled my body as I didn't understand what was going on. But his concern spurred me into action. When the boat finally touched shore, my grandfather jumped out of the boat and hurried back to the car. We left the boat and all our equipment behind and rushed through the trails like chased people. While I shouted at him, asking him to explain, he tried to concentrate on driving, his face showing tension. After about 10 minutes, he was able to explain. He said that when he looked down at the lake, he saw a strange shape getting closer and closer. At first it was just a blur, but as it got closer, he could see it more clearly. It was a human face, a strange shape emerging from the water. As he leaned in to get a better look, the shape reached out and grabbed him. He felt a sense of terror, as if something lurking in the darkness under the water was trying to pull him down. He couldn't remember much more, but the only thing he was sure of was that the face was not that of a fish. His last words about that strange face left a deep impression on me. Neither of us could forget this strange event, and it became an inexplicable mystery, a constant obsession with what we had encountered on that lake. At the end of the journey to discover these stories, we realized that fishing is not simply a hobby, but also a risky adventure. The experiences that the characters in these 3 stories go through not only leave us haunted, but also remind us to be vigilant in the face of the unpredictable. Hopefully you have felt the suspense and horror from these stories. Remember, in the natural world, Things don't always turn out the way we expect.